album 1 done. Going in quite a different direction, we're going to Everclear right now. Sparkle and Fade. So we have not covered Everclear on the pod. You want me to very quickly give you a little bit of like what you need to know about Everclear,
Sure.
before we kind of get into it. So you ready, Jeff, to have a little bit of learning right here? So
Yeah.
I won't go too long. So Everclear was formed in 1991 in Portland, Oregon. The original lineup had Art Elizakis. I always have to like slow down a little bit because that alliteration, right, with all those A's and stuff like there's a lot of A's in that name, right? So go there. But he's the singer, the lead vocalist, the songwriter, and the guitarist for the band. And Craig Montoya is on the bass guitar, and Greg Eklund is on the drums. So this album comes out in 95, so between 91 and 95. It's a reasonable rise to fame, right? That's not too long before you become MTV famous, right? And they become MTV famous off of the track Santa Monica from this album. But Art Elizakis, if you've ever heard an Everclear album, it's not hard to figure out. He had a very difficult childhood. He sings about it quite a bit, I think, famously, like Father of Mine, right, is like the one that kind of gives you like an insight into what he's doing. It's not on this album, but his dad walked out when he was a kid. They were financially hard up. He lived in the slums of LA, and he was a white kid, right? So he was one of the few white kids, right, in the area where he was from. So he definitely was bullied for that, and he became a heavy drug user early in his life. He kind of was housing unstable for a lot of his life while also having a drug addiction. But he does have a near fatal cocaine overdose in the late 80s, which actually pushes him to get clean. He has a couple hiccups along the way, but he does largely manage to stay clean after that. So credit to him. And you can hear elements of those experiences certainly lyrically on this album. He began, Josh, in a cowpunk band, the genre we haven't talked about in quite a while, since like Meat Puppets and what was that early 80s album that we covered? Not The Birthday Party. Oh boy, I'll have to think about it.
You have to look.
Yeah, the cowpunk band that we covered from the very early 80s. But yeah, he was in a cowpunk band, and then he found a record label called Shindig Records that is specifically for that sound in the San Francisco scene, and is putting together a solo album. But somewhere along the way, he kind of morphs in the early 90s from doing cowpunk into like making what this is, which is that alternative rock with a little bit of power pop in there. In 1 month in 1992, his record label failed. His band broke up. And then he learned that his girlfriend was pregnant. And he moves to Portland, Oregon, puts an ad in Music Weekly. So we were asking how much longer that was going to be a thing for bands, right? Like putting stuff in and finding your band, at least as of 1992. That is how Everclear comes. And that's where Craig Montoya and Scott Cuthbert come from. And the name Everclear is a reference to the alcohol, Everclear. So in case you're wondering about that. Yep. And yeah, so there's other stuff, and I'll mix it in our review. I do want to say though, he was, the band was was part of a bidding war. They got listed to, and a couple major labels were going after them, and they were eventually signed by Gary Gersh of Capitol Records, which they were very proud of because he also was responsible for signing, ready for this, guys, Nirvana, Sonic Youth, and Counting Crows. So there you go. So put Everclear in the same group as those, at least in terms of who they were signed by. All right, so last time we gave the first take to Josh. Jeff, how well did you know Everclear heading into this album?
I did not know much about Everclear at all heading into this, although I vaguely remember Santa Monica, that lead single when it did come out.
It was hard not to know that one. That one was all over the radio.
And it
still is.
And it did kind of like conjure up some memories, just of just like being a kid in the 90s and stuff.
Well, and
but-
little known CTS trivia, Jeff and I did sort of like a dry run episode of a CTS that we didn't end up recording. It was a pretty good episode, I have to say, but in the singles for that, we did cover an Everclear song from an album after this called Everything to Everyone. And you had that as your number one song of the week, Jeff, if you remember correctly.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I did not recall that, but I enjoyed this album. A lot of energy. I think, as you mentioned, a lot of the lyrical content, it did seem like autobiographical. But I think, that one track, like Heroin Girl, like it was... like he was just
that was actually the lead single. The Santa Monica was the second single.
Like just I think all around, like the lead singer, I think he just brought like a lot of really great energy to each track. That one, there's another track. I was looking at some of the videos just to get like a little bit more like context of the band. But there was this one other track around like dating a black girl, which I thought that track was like a really good one.
I think that's Heart Spark $.
Heart Spark $.
Right. Yeah, maybe.
Summerland was also another one that kind of stood out for me. But I think it was, just like a good like hard rock, like all around. Like I think it was like just a good like kind of hangout music, outside, like in the summertime. But there was there were I feel like some kind of like a little bit of like a kind of a darker tone, I think, to some of the other tracks. Just kind of really getting personal to what this guy, kind of experienced, like you said, like either growing up or just like, having crazy relationships and stuff. But that was a great album.
Yeah, I never liked Everclear growing up. I remember being really annoyed by kind of their singles, and Santa Monica was the one on this album, but their later album, Father of Mine and I Will Buy You a New Life, I always kind of like rubbed up against that for whatever reason. I just never kind of saw what made them special or what the big deal was. My estimation of them listening to this album has risen a little bit. I kind of, like Jeff said, I really liked kind of the autobiographical nature, or if not biographical, a good job of like portraying like kind of the down and dirty life of somebody that lives on the fringe, maybe, or has experienced, drug abuse and things like that. I thought that was kind of the strongest part for me on this album, in a kind of unusual twist. I'm usually, as we always are fond to say, I'm more of a music guy than a lyrics guy, but the lyrics really stood out for me on this album this week. I like he does a really good job of like kind of writing, like Jeff said, kind of the twisted relationships, or kind of, abusive or just not healthy relationships that he has. He also talks about his sexual kind of thoughts and proclivities, especially on the last track.
That's a weird end to the album, isn't it? Like
it sure
there,
is. Yeah. I would say too that Santa Monica is kind of the outlier song compared to the rest of the tracks. It does not really give you an indication of what the rest of the album is like. I think the music part, it kind of is what I remember it being. It's like perfunctory rock and roll that is good, but I still don't like grasp on to like why this band kind of was as successful as they were. I mean, I guess they're a solid band musically. I can kind of see, they play well together. They have a certain sound, but they're not unique enough for me, and there's something missing there from a perspective that makes me like feel like they're a hidden gem or something like that. I think I also wanted to mention the shout out to the Oedipus reference in the first track with Electra Made Me Blind. That's kind of an obvious kind of Lit 101 reference,
yes.
but I thought it was
like I went to college and took
Right.
a philosophy class,
Exactly.
like feel to it, yeah.
But you know, it's bold to make your opening track with that title. But yeah, I think that's how I feel. It's good. It's not great for me. I thought the lyrics are interesting. That's what I got out of it the most. And I guess Art Alexakis's voice is kind of what separates him too. He has a he has a strong voice, but it is kind of different than other people. I always found his look annoying too. I think that was one of the other things, unfairly probably, but
it's hard to like describe what his look is because it's like kind of surfer, kind of like I live on the street in San Francisco.
He had that soul patch that I never liked.
Kind of scenester. It's a little. weird.
So I guess it's a slight thumbs up for me, but it's not gonna make me an Everclear fan.
Well, your first couple lines could have come from me, Josh, because I have not always been an Everclear fan too. What this album made me realize is like this album is one thing, and then the later albums are a different thing.
Okay.
I did like the song "Everything to Everyone." I thought was a really good song, but you're right. Yeah, "Father of Mine" and "Wonderful," right? I think was another big hit of theirs.
Album,
and "I Will Buy You a New Life." Those songs did not do much for me at all. They were like very clean production. They were kind of, I felt like a little bit generic. My take on Everclear is that like this album is definitively a Gen X sound musically, and Art Alexakis like sings pure Gen X, but the lyrical content is like very Gen Z. Like, let me tell you my whole life in excruciating detail at every point. And I thought that would bother me more because a lot of what I hated about their later stuff was kind of like, the world's tiniest violin, feel for me at times. Like, all right, we get it. Like, life sucked for you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to know it on every track, right? But I didn't get as annoyed on this one. You guys did reference Heart Speak $, which is the song about interracial relationship. That's a little bit on the nose. So it was not one of my favorite songs. My Sexual Life was bizarre. I still can't quite understand like what it like at some things it's like he kind of saying like I have a sex life, but it's not a sexy song at all, and it's not like him coming out and saying like you must respect my sexual mores or like appetites kind of. It's more just like kind of like sad boy a little bit, you know what I mean? Like I have a sexual life too, and it's like ugh, that it's like the most needy sort of way of doing it. But yeah, the two singles, Heroin Girl and Santa Monica, are really good songs. Later in it, Pale Green Stars, I think is a really good song as like a sort of a ballad. It kicks off well with Electra Made Me Blind, both lyrically and musically. So there's a lot to like in this. I also was surprised by how hard the rocking part was on this album. I did not expect them to go as much because I thought of them as like Born to Me mid-tempo. And also, even if you just know Santa Monica, right, it doesn't have like these like big guitars in it, right? It's got, it's not that it's mild, but it's not like a song that would presage what you get on this album, which is like bigger guitars. There's a little bit of a power pop undertone here. There's a little bit of punk rock in this as well. I guess a throwback to that cowpunk sound that was there. It is surprising they're a 3-piece. It feels like there's 4 pieces to it, so credit to them for a more expansive sound than you would think from just 3 people. So I would say a pleasant surprise, and that I liked the variety of this. I also think later they became, in this one only Santa Monica had the thing that I think of as like an Everclear standard, which is that like, no, yeah, no, which like felt like it ended every song that they had later. But on this one, it's only on Santa Monica really. And because of that, it doesn't at all great because it stands out as just a thing. Later, I feel like that becomes a hallmark of like all of their songs. Yeah, like, that's how they end like everything, right? And then it became so much of a cliche that we had a friend who liked Everclear in college. And every time he'd walk by, we'd go, no, yeah, like when he'd go by just to kind of, get on his nerves a little bit. But surprising thumbs up for me this week.
Yeah, John, I think you answered my question too. I think to Josh's point, like Santa Monica doesn't sound like the other parts of the album because it's so catchy. And you just mentioned like they kind of follow that formula in some of the other albums that they
Oh,
have.
the later
Like
tracks. Yeah,
the
that's
later
basically
tracks,
they
yeah.
do Santa Monica like 5 other times, but none of them
Yeah.
are as good as. What makes the Everything to Everyone track better is even though it follows the formula, they add in different sounds, like electronic sounds, which I think makes them sound different and works. So
Yeah, all their singles are kind of like softened and like the edges are sanded off. I find, if we're thinking about it as a whole, but I don't
they're
know
a
if
little
that,
whiny too.
Yeah,
If I'm
again,
being real,
if like
yeah.
the other albums are kind of the same as this, or are they just kind of as a whole get softer? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't dug into whole Everclear out. Even this one, which was
Right.
the one that probably would have been the most designed for me, had never listened to before this time. So I don't know if just the singles, kind of like Santa Monica on this one, are outliers, and there's more to peel out from it. But at least for right now, I can say, we talked earlier about like Counting Crows growing on me. I don't think Everclear like got to the point where I'm like, I really misappropriate this band. But I have to say, once again, I did not think I was going to like this album, and I liked it better than I thought it was. So that's a win in its own right.
Yeah. Nice.